people who live here in the States. One of my friends who wasn't in the film actually tried doing it for a while, and he made, Chris Cortez, he made like no money at it. So for an actual gamer, I mean, we're also playing those games because we enjoy them. And the minute that we start selling something to make a living at it, doing, having to play the game to survive, it ceases to become enjoyment.
They're basically saying the cost of living is so much lower over there in Boston.
To give you a sense of it, actually, they used to have gold farms here, and they used to have them set up so that they were all just computer set up and no one was playing them. And they found that it's cheaper to hire Chinese labor than to keep electricity running in the United States. So, wow.
Okay, yes, right here.
You guys straight away or did cover PvP in any way, shape, or form? Is that just a result of how you wanted the film to kind of deal? Is that just a result of the subject?
No, these guys PvP a lot, so it wasn't a result of the subject so much as, in one sense, there was PvP early on in the film. The film used to be like 3.5 hours long, but it became ludicrously difficult to keep people's interest, and so it kept on being cut down until they were just shaving pieces off. And
what's PvP?
PvP is player versus player. Sorry about that. It's you go into a place and you get to play against other players and, crush them. So, but essentially, the reason why it got cut out was because, in terms of just getting the nutshell of an idea, PvP becomes something where you have to spend a few minutes on, just to say, okay, well, get everyone up to speed and go into it. So that's where that got lost.
Consider making another movie just based on that?
I think there are a couple other movies that are kind of in production right now. Actually, you were even telling me about one.
Yeah, no, I've run into people, like I was at BlizzCon this year, and I ran into people who are making documentaries about gamers. So obviously, for some strange reason, we're a very compelling subject to a lot of people. Another question out in the audience? Yes, you?
So, in the movie, the Online Gamers Anonymous Association was kind of represented as this one crazy woman on the internet. Did you talk to other people involved with that, and did you talk to other people in the addiction treatment community about online gaming addiction?
Certainly we did. Kimberly Young, one of the psychologists who is actually in the film, she comes on, I think, right before one of Carol Lee's segments, but she's deeply embedded inside, treating online game addiction.
Yeah, we talked to a couple of them. We've at least 4 people we interviewed about that. But what ends up happening when you're making a documentary is they all have to be tied into a narrative almost, just to kind of keep it going. And this woman was just tied into this story that kept on coming up, and we kept visiting her, and it got more and more interesting. And none of the other people we interviewed had that, so. That was what made a lot of the decisions. A lot of questions we get asked. They say, "Oh, why did you focus on this? Why did you focus on this?" It really becomes you're chasing the stories, and wherever the stories are, that's where we're following. Yes, also in the middle.
What do you see as the future of gaming, and what do you see as the implications of it?
Oh, sure.
Here we go.
Well, I guess on a personal level, I think that, not really on a personal level, I guess just on a societal level, I look at the future of gaming, and it's this incredible thing that it really is just slightly more on the precipice of where we're going. And if you look at Facebook and Twitter and all these things, these are just kind of catching up with where MMOs are at. The immersive realities which we live inside these virtual spaces are really just a couple of years ahead of where we are right now. And as we see these Farmvilles and things like that crop up that take over people's universes inside Facebook, you say, oh wow, well that's already happening in a much larger way, in a much more specifically lively and engaging way inside a virtual space. A lot of people now only discuss things through Facebook. Most of my friends I won't talk to at all. I'll just stalk them. Why is that? And that's true for most people. That's true for a lot of people. So it's not that. How many times will I prefer to get a text message versus a phone call because I just don't like it anymore? And so our spaces are becoming, in a sense, we need this. We're tethered to these devices and this virtual space in such incredible ways that things that come outside of it almost seem to be a detriment or become less useful. And so as we get further and further in, which seems to be, I think, extremely likely, if not inevitable, then where we're going really is a completely immersive environment, which is, essentially locked into, our occipital lobe and every other part of our, essentially our sensory space, and we're just completely embedded inside a virtual world. Not to say that we'd be going in and out, I think we would, but rather that it'll be a seamless integration with who we are. So there'll be a spot where we'll be seamlessly integrated always. So instead of having to say, look at my iPhone while I'm driving and almost kill myself, I'll instead have, an implant that's on top of my eye and showing me the way, and I think it'll become, in one sense, intrusive, and yet in another sense, more organic.